Hello, everybody. This is JJ Pruitt, and I am here with a very special guest, Dr. David Shuringa of Crossroad Bible Institute. And Dr. Shuringa is going to talk to us today about restoring the voting rights for the participants of the Dannon Project and for that matter, the people of the United States. Dr. Shuringa, pleasure to meet you, sir. How are you today?
I'm doing fine, and it's a pleasure to be on the program, JJ. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, thank you for having us. Now, Dr. Shuringa, you just got back from Capitol Hill, and you were part of a church-affiliated response to try to have a faith-based community to come in and to try to do an effort to try to restore the voting rights for the ex-offenders?
Yeah, that's right. I've been part of the Communities of Faith Advisory Board of the Brennan Center for Justice at the New York University of Law for the last several years, and we've been working hard, and I'm doing it from a faith-based perspective, and that is of making people aware of this legislation called the DRA, the Democracy Restoration Act. And just recently, the Brennan Center asked me to come and represent the faith community on a panel discussion that was responding to presentations that were made at that time by Republican Rand Paul and Democrat Ben Cardin. And so they both are introducing DRA-like legislation, and both were there. So this is a significant step forward, because now we have bipartisan support, and I was able to have the privilege of speaking at a bipartisan Senate briefing on Capitol Hill. So it was extremely well attended, and I think it's taken it further. I'm learning a lot about politics. I'm a pastor, so I don't know anything about politics except, the West Wing and House of Cards,
Sure.
But it just takes a long time, and it takes persistence, and it takes tenacity to step by step. About 4 years ago, I was on Capitol Hill, and that was a briefing for the House of Representatives, and this one was, for the Senate. But another big step forward was simply because those senators actually showed up and talked just before we on the panel began to make our presentation. So this is very positive, but of course everybody knows that Washington's in gridlock, but that someone, a Republican who's, leans towards libertarianism, is now also supporting a version of this. It's not exactly the same as Ben Cardin's version, but we see it as a step forward for returning citizens to get their right to vote back.
This really didn't used to be a problem that much until President Obama got in office. Why do you think the shift has happened so much? Like, for instance, in Florida, I heard you say that Governor Rick Scott took rights away as soon as he was voted in. Why do you think they're trying to take the rights away of the ex-offenders when they had the rights at the start before they started making these laws?
Yeah, that's a very important question for our whole country to ask itself. Every state has different laws, and it's a patchwork of different kinds of laws in different ways. In some states, a returning citizen who committed a felony may never ever vote again, and others have to jump through lots of hoops. Others yet have to try to get permission, special permission from the governor. That's going to happen for the average guy. And so it was very disappointing that the governor of the recently elected governor of Florida and also the recently elected governor of Iowa, both Republicans, the very first act in office was to curtail the rights of ex-offenders to vote, which I find quite ironic, because ex-offenders having the right to vote, it put them in office. It's like here in Michigan, too. Ex-offenders have had, returning citizens is a better term, have had the right to vote for a long time now, and we have a Republican governor. And so there's a number, JJ, there's a number of reasons for this. A lot of this goes back to the old Jim Crow laws, where they had literacy tests and poll taxes and so forth to keep certain demographics out of the voting booth. So there's definitely that sort of latent problem. There's also the problem of that in our country we view punishment as vengeance and retribution rather than what I believe is a biblical approach. Punishment should be restorative and rehabilitative. And since we see punishment as vengeance and retribution, keeping the vote from someone is a way that, we kind of keep on punishing them so that, their sentence is complete, but society keeps punishing them by branding them for the rest of their life. Now, this is, of course, extremely counterproductive to a healthy society because people that do not have a voice in their community, how can they be expected to really take part in it in a positive way? So what we're doing is we're keeping people really on the fringe of the society rather than thrusting them into the mainstream of the economic engine and to be able to make decisions and to be invested in their community and understand the power of that vote. And then there are also sort of a more unspoken reason that this is the case, and that is that most people in prison are people of color, and there are those who presume to think that that returning citizens will vote with a particular party or another, and of course that's close to wicked, if I can speak as a pastor. And also, I don't think at all you can really prove that because, as I said, in Iowa and in Florida, both Republican governors were elected with returning citizens having the right to vote. So this is something that the DRA wants to handle. Oh, and there is also the Republican versus Democratic view of governance involved with this, JJ. And that is, on the right, they really like to protect the rights of states to determine their own destiny, and they don't like the federal government telling the states what to do. And you'll have the same thing in states where the counties don't like the state capital telling them what to do, And so there's also that piece of it where they want to let the states do what they want to do. But the thing is, when you have an injustice like this is a time where the federal government does need to step in because the rights of people are being violated. I hope I didn't get into too much detail there. I'm sorry if I did.
No, I really appreciate it because we want everyone to hear what's going on and why their rights are being infringed upon, and it basically boils down to politics. Now, as a pastor, I know that you pray for the entire world, but how do we change the mindset of the people who are thinking, well, these guys are just they did something wrong and they don't deserve anything anymore? How do we change the people's mindsets who think like that?
Well, speaking as a pastor, it takes a heart change, but it also does take education. And the fact is that, and it takes an entirely different approach to crime and punishment. Like I say, in the United States, our culture is a vengeance culture. You look at the blockbuster movies that in the summer that people flock to, they tend to be movies where, some guy is wronged, his family is hurt, and then, of course, he goes out there and gets justice. Now, what do we mean in our country by getting justice? Well, we mean vengeance, payback, retribution. And as long as we have that sort of primitive, harmful understanding of punishment and justice, we're going to continue to punish returning citizens, and they get punished in a number of ways. Just look at the little box on the top of the application for employment. Have you ever been arrested for a felony? And how difficult it is, as your organization knows. That's why your organization exists, because the hurdles for a returning citizen are virtually insurmountable without help in terms of getting a job, getting housing, and getting the extra help that they need. So you guys know firsthand, and what the country needs is the very same kind of education it needs to promote the work that you are doing, in order to give people a second chance and help them and guide them and help them get out of that turnstile of retribution and of making some of the same mistakes again. So, and people may think, well, it's just voting, but voting is really the heartbeat of the participation in democracy. And Proverbs 31:8-10 says that we are to be a voice for the voiceless. We're to speak out for those who cannot speak for themselves. That means those of us who do have power in society, that is not to maintain our own position, but we are to use our power to empower the powerless. Now, the returning citizen does not have a voice. So we who do have a voice, and this is what you can tell your people and listeners, we need to speak out, because what better way to give a voice to the voiceless than to give the voiceless a vote? That's their vote, that's their voice. And then finally, I would say we need to instruct people to understand we need these returning citizens to be active parts of our society. We're missing something without their gifts, without their contributions. We should not be thinking about, we're helping these poor suckers because, they're down there. No, these are our equals. These are image bearers of God who have made mistakes, and we've all made mistakes. And, we're not doing them a favor. They're doing us a favor by allowing us the privilege of helping them and getting them into the mainstream, because they have contributions to help make the society a better world.
Wow, very, very powerful thought there, and I thank you for that. Here in the state of Alabama, there are some of the crimes, unfortunately, directed towards minorities, where the voting rights are taken from more so. I think, and I'll have to check my facts, but I think if you murder someone here, you can get your voting rights back. But if you have a felony drug charge, you cannot get your voting rights back here in the state of Alabama. This is
the country's filled with these irrational things, but they are race-based. One of the most famous ones that's been on the news lately, of course, is that the penalties for crack cocaine are like 18 times more severe than powder cocaine. Mm-hmm. And we all know the reason for that, because rich suburbanites use powder cocaine, right? Mm-hmm. And so. These kind of things, in Alabama would make sense too. Definitely go back to the Jim Crow days. You have particular crimes. This was being done back then too. That happened to be done in particular contexts, and then you can have another crime that's even worse in another context. It doesn't have much of a consequence. So there's no question that there is a racist bias that's going on. I can give you a quick example of that. For example, I was speaking not so long ago with an evangelical leader. And I just said to him, hey, now, my friend, I said, why do you think that most people in prison are people of color? What's with that? And his answer was, his answer was, well, because people of color commit more crimes. And I said, so what you're saying is that certain demographics are morally inferior to other demographics? He said, well, I guess so. I said, do you think it's possible that certain demographics maybe are targeted more because it's easier, like shooting fish in a barrel, to go round up people in the inner city? You think it's possible that poor people cannot afford to hire their own defense lawyers, so they get an overworked public defender? Do you think that, so we have this idea that, it makes me cry when I think about our attitude and our assumptions about people who are made in the image of God just like we are. And that's why we work really hard as a Christian organization, not only to emphasize the changing of hearts. Sure, people in prison have made wrong decisions, those who are guilty and have made wrong moral choices, and we want to help change that. But we also have a sinful system in our country that was also developed by sinful hearts. And so we need to have heart change, but also equally we need to have systemic change.
Yes, sir. And to kind of wrap this up, what can we in Alabama do to kind of help the cause that you're trying to fight for on Capitol Hill? What can we, as Alabamians, as people with the Dannon Project and people who support our cause, what can we do to try to change things here in Alabama?
Well, first of all, keep your eyes on the Brennan Center for Justice at the University of Law, because they have one whole arm of that. It's headed by Myrna Perez, who is just an incredible, she's deputy director of the Brennan Center. And because like right now, they're working very hard to pave the way for legislation in Florida and stuff. So watch the Brennan Center, keep an eye on them, and so that when initiatives are going on, you can be aware of it. Just recently, they come to us quite a bit too, and I wrote an op-ed for Kentucky, because there was some legislation going on in Kentucky about this. And the other thing is to keep your congressmen aware of this. The senators and the ones that are on, go to Capitol Hill representatives and say, hey, this DRA, we think this is important. We need you to take a look at this. There has to be awareness, because those senators and stuff like that, not to degrade or speak down in any way, but they're always thinking about the next election, right?
Right.
And so they have to know that their people are aware of these issues and that they're aware that there's this DRA out there. And then also, finally, just keep the churches, keep the communities aware of this issue. Maybe as an organization, you can, provide help, probably already do, for ex-offenders to get that right to vote, because a lot of times it takes a lot of paperwork and so forth. So awareness, education, and being proactive with our legislators are ways for this to go on. And so it's going to be a long haul, but it needs to be done.
Dr. David Shuringa, Crossword Bible Institute. Sir, thank you so much for your time, and we're going to take this information and we're going to give it to the masses, because it is definitely needed, and we really appreciate pastors like you to touch on these issues, to let people know that we are all in this together, and we really appreciate you coming, taking your time out, and God bless you, sir.
Hey, well, thank you. It's been a blessing. We partner with reentry ministries all over the country, and you are a key partner for us in that part of the country, so we appreciate it, because we have sent our students over to you. If your folks are interested in more information on this, we have our website, cbi.tv, and we have a weekly web show that talks about these activities, but also on YouTube, if they want to see that 2-hour Senate briefing that I was a part of, they can find that on YouTube, because they can see the presentation of the senators and also the other panelists. So if they want to, there's resources that are out there. Okay,
we'll definitely do. Dr. Shuringa, thank you so much for this, and we really appreciate it. If there's anything we can do in this part of the country for you, then please just let us know.
Hey, thank you for calling. It's been a blessing and a privilege to speak with you, and I think you're just such a blessing to this country. Keep up the great work.
Thank you, and we need to put you in office somewhere, because it's going to take minds like yours to change America.
Well, it's going to take the Holy Spirit, I think.
and a lot of that, too. Thank you, sir.
All right, JJ. Bye-bye.
Have a great day.